Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I would like to show you how to craft a good quant resume. There are two parts in today's video. The first part, I'll be going over a few general tips that you should follow when you write your resume. And in the second part, I will be showing a general structure for writing a good quant resume. And also I'll talk about a few key points that you should pay attention to in each of the sections, as well as what interviewers are looking for when they're selecting resume. In the near future, I also plan on uploading a video that will go through 2 sample resumes and show you how to polish them to make them better. So if you're interested, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And please feel free to leave comments or questions down below. Some of you have also requested me to film a how to choose a good MFE program video. I'll link that video over here so you can check it out. Without further ado, let us start today's video. First, I want to give some general tips to follow when you write your resume. Number 1, keep your resume in 1 page if possible. Guess how much time does a recruiter spend on reading your resume? Just 7 seconds. So if you have a lengthy resume, the recruiters won't have time to go through all of it. It's best if you highlight all of your achievements and your work experience on just 1 single page. If you have work and research experience for over a decade, and you really have that many things to write, then maybe you can have a 2-page resume. But still, make sure you put the most important things that you want to highlight on the first page. So even if the interviewers or recruiters don't have enough time to look at the second page, they can still see what you have done on the first page. Tip number 2, when you save or send out your resume, make sure you name your resume, your first name, last name, and then resume. When people send me their resumes for referral, some of their resumes just have the name resume, and it's very hard for me to figure out whose resume it is without opening the file. So please keep that in mind when you're saving your resume. Tip number 3, save your resume into a PDF file. Some of the times when I receive people's resume, they come in as Word documents. Some of the company referral websites only allow PDF files to be uploaded. So when I referred other people and they only had Word documents, I had to transform those Word documents into PDF files, which may mess up their format. So it's best if you transform the file into PDF file on your own first before sending them out to people or companies. Tip number 4, if you have time, it's best that you customize your resume towards each individual position that you're applying to. I know this is very hard when you're applying for a lot of positions and companies, but if you do have the time, it actually helps you to stand out from other candidates. When recruiters and interviewers look at your resume, they can actually notice that you have spent extra time to do research on their company or position that you're interested in if you do the customization. Now let's move on to part 2. For part 2, I'd like to show you a general structure of a good quant resume. I've also included a link to this resume if you're interested in the info box below. So in the first section, we have a header that has your name, contact information, and for the next section, you can either have education or work experience. If you're a recent graduate and you don't have a lot of work experience, then you can just list your education on the top. But if you have worked in the industry for a while, you can put your work experience section on the top. And then in the section below, you will have your projects and quant experience, or you can call them projects and leadership. And last but not least, you can have a section called skills and interest. I'll go through each section one by one. So in the header section, you will have your first name, last name, and then on the second row, just list your phone number, your email address, and your address. Some people also like to include their GitHub or LinkedIn. I only recommend doing that if you have a well-maintained profile. If you don't have much on your LinkedIn, GitHub, or even personal website, then please don't include them. Next, we have the education section. In this section, you want to list your education background from the most recent to the least recent. If you have a decent GPA, then you can include it in there. But if you don't, then just leave it out. I also recommend adding a bullet point called relevant coursework. In this line item, you can list the courses that you find relevant to the position. This is helpful if your degree isn't that relevant to quantitative finance, but you have taken relevant courses. For example, if you're a biostatistics major and you're applying for quant developer jobs, then in the relevant coursework, you can write down that you've taken object-oriented programming, you have taken finance courses, so you can justify even though your major isn't MFE, you still possess the knowledge and skills to do the job. If you have made it to the Dean's List or you have received special awards or scholarships, you can also include it in the section. Next, let's talk about work experience. Again, most people would order this from the most recent jobs to the least recent jobs. For each of the job that you have in this section, just give a brief overview on what you have accomplished during that job. Don't include too many technical terms at the same time because sometimes when recruiters read your resume, they might not know what you're talking about. Here are some tips that I find really helpful when writing a resume. Tip number 1 is to start your bullet point using verbs. So in the example that I'm showing you here, you can say, optimized portfolio, conducted research, assessed investment opportunities, etc. Tip number 2 is try to use different verbs for each of the bullet point. Try to look up a variety of words to use so that you can showcase your abilities from different angles. Tip number 3, quantify your impact. So after you say that you have done a certain things in your previous job, always mention what impact you have done to the team, what value you have added. For example, you can say you have reduced the process time by 20%, or you can say you improved the model accuracy by trying different models to 97%. Next section, we have projects and quant experience. You can also name it projects and leadership. So here's the section that you want to talk about the projects you did in school or projects you have done in your free time. Again, don't make this part sound too technical. You can talk about how you use the Gaussian copula model or how you use the Monte Carlo simulation, but don't go too much into detail. Over here, you still want to be as general as possible by not only highlighting what you did, but also talk about what impact you've made throughout this project. And this section is also the place where you can highlight your leadership experience. For example, you've been a calculus teaching assistant or you founded your own investment club. You can go through those experiences in this section to highlight your teamwork, communication, and leadership skills. Last but not least, we have the skills and interests section. Under the skills bullet point, I would recommend you to look at the job descriptions for the job that you're applying to. To give you an example, I found this mandatory requirement from one of the quant jobs. So here it says 3 to 5 years of development experience with Python or C++, Java. Because in the job description, it already mentioned those programming languages. Please make sure that you mention them in your resume. Take another one as an example. Here it asks you to have expert proficiency in Python and also strong Linux skills. So if you don't emphasize that you have the skill in the skills section in your resume, then recruiters might not pick your resume for the next round. So before submitting your resume for any of the job openings, make sure that you read their job description and emphasize that you have the relevant skills in your resume. So here comes the second key point. Only list the skills that you actually possess. The interviewers are going to hold you accountable for any of the skills that you wrote in a resume. For example, if you wrote down Java in the skill that you possess, but when they test you on fundamental knowledge of Java language, but you don't know the answers to them, then they might question the credibility of your resume. Similarly, for your hobbies or interests, make sure that when you list them down in this section, you actually are really interested in it. If you listed something as your hobby, if interviewers are really interested and then they ask you about it, but you don't know anything about it, then it will be kind of awkward. You can also include the certificates that you have, for example, CFA and FRM. After you complete your resume, first, you should proofread your resume on your own. Second, you should ask people to peer review your resume, because your friends and family may notice mistakes that you may have overlooked when you were proofreading. It's actually a good thing because they might not know a specific term that you mentioned in the resume, so they will ask you. So you can practice how to answer that question before the interviewer asks you the same question. And because this is a resume for applying for quant-related jobs, please have your resume more tailored towards the quantitative finance or financial engineering aspect. I know some of you may be also applying for jobs in data science or machine learning. You sure can emphasize your data science and machine learning skills, but please also make sure that your resume covers your financial background or your knowledge about the financial markets. So that wraps up this video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below. Thank you so much for watching and see you in the next video. Bye!